Welcome back everybody to a new episode of Cooking with Chef Spidey. Thank you again for all the likes and subscribes. If you haven't had a chance to, please make sure you subscribe, you like, you turn that notification bell on. Today we're going to make ourselves another homemade recipe that I like doing. It's homemade ricotta gnocchis. It seems like it's kind of a difficult thing, but it's not. It's a very easy thing. I'm going to show you the steps on how to make that recipe and how to cut the dough, how to get everything going. But while we're doing that, the first thing we want to do is we want to make sure we wash our hands. That's right, wash your hands. I did that right before we started. It's important. Stay home, stay safe. Okay, before we start working with the pasta, I have water on the stove getting ready to boil, and I also have a nice pan getting some heat to it because we are going to make a special sauce for tonight too. So the sauce that we're going to be making today is something that was inspired by almost kind of a mistake. A couple of years back, the Woodlawn Volunteer Fire Company, my friends and I, we had a party and I had brought some leftovers from work home. Half of them were tortellinis with cream sauce, and the other side was like penne and a red sauce. And we decided, hey, why don't we just put this cream sauce, this Alfredo sauce, and the red sauce together. And what it made was people begging me to bring this back to them. So I'm kind of going to make a little red cream sauce out of today's. And I also have some vegetables. I have some spinach, and I have some nice baby portobello mushrooms. So we're going to put some things together. This is kind of one of those things you open up the fridge and say, okay, well, what do I have? I've got milk, I've got Parmesan, I've got some tomato paste. Let's try to make something fun. Some spinach, some mushrooms. It's all about creating what you like to do. So the main part of this is going to be our gnocchi, but what can we do with that? What kind of sauces can we make? So getting right into this, we'll talk about the recipe, we'll talk about the ingredients that we need, and then we'll start working with the ingredients. So what I have is I have a cup of ricotta cheese. I've got a lemon that we're going to be zesting, a little bit of that on the outside. I've got about a quarter cup of tomato paste, a little bit of minced garlic, some fresh parsley. I have two separate containers here of Parmesan cheese. I have some oregano, and I have some flour, and I got about a cup and a half of milk, and that whole milk is going to go for the cream sauce. All right, and then I also have about a quarter cup of extra flour, all-purpose flour on the sides, because you'll see that even though the recipe calls for a cup of flour, we're really looking for a specific type of consistency. I have my Italian pinch, I have 2 eggs, and I've got my mushrooms. So first things first, what I like to do is I like to separate my workspace. So we're going to put these back here, because those are things that we're working on when we're making the sauce. So I'm going to take all that stuff and get it out of the way. That way, it makes for an easier transition when you go from cooking to organizing or prepping, is what they call it. So for now, all we do is we take this cup of ricotta cheese. We do half cup of Parmesan cheese. I like to put a little bit of fresh parsley in mine. A nice little pinch of Italian pinch there, right? Salt, pepper, garlic. The oregano. 2 eggs. And we're going to mix this around a little bit just to get those eggs to kind of incorporate with the ricotta cheese and the seasonings. Then we're going to add the flour to it. Just mix that up until it's kind of got an even consistency. Those eggs have kind of broken down. You don't have chunks of the whites and the yolks. The yolks are really what make this a nice fluffy flavor and consistency to them too. So I wouldn't suggest this type of recipe to substitute egg whites. You really need the yolks with them. Okay, I'm going to take this full cup of flour, pour that into there too. We're going to mix this up until we've got ourselves a nice dough. Shouldn't take too long. You don't want to overbeat this either. You don't want to overwork that dough because you're going to get to a point where overworking it is activating the gluten too far, and you're just not going to get that nice fluffiness that you really need from a gnocchi. It just has this great consistency that it's so much different than a pasta because that ricotta cheese in the middle, it just kind of puts everything in its place and makes it just taste a lot better with the flavor of the egg yolks and stuff. You'll see it's just different. So the consistency that I have here is pretty good. Once you're able to kind of get into a ball, it's going to be a little bit sticky. You can always kind of just, maybe sprinkle a little bit more flour over the top here. You really just you're trying to find this consistency that almost is like a pizza dough, close to a pizza dough. But at the same time, you don't want it to get so dry that it's not workable. So I'm pretty happy with where we're at here, just a little bit over that cup of flour. And what we do, we work on this surface. So take this flour, start yourself a little nice floured out, dry work surface area, okay? And we'll take about a third of this, and you're gonna get your hands dirty, that's okay. That's kind of how this recipe is. Take about a third of this dough, right? Put it down there on the flour, and start rolling it out. You're gonna wanna roll this out until you've got about a ½ an inch worth of a tube. I know there's a lot of different ways to do this. The old Italian way, they have these old pieces of triangle wood with the lines grooved into them to get them that really cool shape and that great old school look to them. But for today, this is just an easy way to do this at home. Not trying to make things too complicated. All right, get that tube to about there. And we'll just take a knife and we'll just start cutting these down. You really only want to do maybe about a ½ an inch into these, and we'll just cut these all the way through. You don't want to go too big with these either. I know that you can do these larger, but if you go too big with them, they don't really tend to cook the right way. So you really just want to make sure that they're even sizes, about a ½ an inch. Okay? And we'll come back and I'll show you what to do once all of these are done. Now that we have all the gnocchi cut, I put it into a pan, flour the pan so that they don't stick together. Okay? We're gonna put these off to the side because at this point, gnocchi's almost done. All you gotta do is throw it in some boiling water for a couple minutes and it's done. We're gonna make our sauce now. So let's go over to the oven and we'll talk about what we're gonna do with the sauces. Okay, the key to making sure that you're doing any type of home cooking project is that you've got everything laid out ahead of time. So we've got everything that we need to work at the oven at this point. We have our mushrooms sliced up, we have some spinach, we have our Parmesan cheese, we have our tomato paste, our gnocchis, our water is just about there to be boiled. Got some seasoning and a little bit of lemon. Then we just need to make sure that we have our minced garlic and our milk. Okay, so first things first, pan's on, starting to get pretty hot. I'll turn the heat up a little bit of olive oil in there. Okay, first things first, we're going to throw in our minced garlic. All right, pretty easy. Just kind of pay attention to the heat of your pan. If you notice things are starting to get too hot, turn the heat down, just kind of watch it. You're not here to burn it, you're here to cook it. And you're really not trying to cook it too fast. You kind of just want to sweat that minced garlic out a little bit. We'll throw the mushrooms in. The mushrooms have a lot of moisture to them, so as these mushrooms start to break down, all that moisture is going to be released from them. And it'll give it that nice base that we're looking for our stuff. So then we've got, take some of this nice spinach, throw that in there too. We're gonna make sure that that heats up and cooks out. Once all this stuff that's in here now starts breaking down, we'll add our creams and our tomato sauce and tomato paste and get that nice sauce going for our gnocchis. Okay, now that the spinach has broken down a little bit, the mushrooms are definitely starting to soften up. We're going to add, let's do about half that tomato paste there. Start mixing that around. Bringing that tomato paste up to temperature. All that mixed together. I moved my water over to that burner because that one's a lot hotter for the gnocchis. I don't know what was taking that other one too long, but you know, one of the main components of cooking again is timing too. Wanting to make sure that you know, everything's ready to go at the same time. But now that we've got this where we want it, I'm going to add my 1.5 cups of whole milk to it. This is going to get that creamy flavor to it. Consistency and color. Add just a little bit of lemon juice to it. And then I'm going to bring this up to a boil. And right when this gets up to a boil, I'm going to turn it down. We're going to add some Parmesan cheese in there to thicken it up. That's ultimately how we're going to make the Alfredo type of sauce with that nice tomato paste in it. And then this sauce will pretty much be ready to go. Ultimately, we're just kind of basing this on how much cheese we want to do, how thick we want to do this, but you know, you can kind of just watch it as it starts to come up to a boil. And it'll kind of give you an idea of where that cream needs to be, where that consistency needs to be. Then we'll add the Parmesan cheese. Okay, that water's boiling over there. I'm just going to start putting in some gnocchis, and really simple, just take the pieces here, drop them in, just do a couple at a time. You're just going to wait for these to float. Really, it should only take about 1 to 3 minutes, really depending on the consistency of the dough that you just made. It doesn't have to be pretty, but bring all this up to a boil. Just be careful, depending on the moisture of your house, if these things sit out too long, they end up getting back stuck to each other again, and you'll end up having a big old piece of dough. So just be careful with that. Make sure that you got a nice amount of flour on each one of the separate pieces of gnocchi so that you can get that separate consistency from each one of them. And again, this is boiling water, so you know, if you're afraid to hurt yourself, just stay back from it. That should be good enough for now. A couple pieces there. We'll bring all those up at the same time. This is starting to boil, so we're going to add that Parmesan cheese. We're going to turn our heat down a little bit to a simmer. Let's add that whole 1/2 cup that I put in there. And maybe now is a good time to kind of switch to a whisk. Really start breaking that cheese down, mixing everything up real good. Getting a little bit of thicker consistency. That cheese is really what's going to make this that thick sauce flavor to it. Definitely important to, when you're eating at home, you know, taste it. You know, go through and say, okay, well, you know, this is where it's at. Let me see if I like it or not. Needs a little bit more pinch to it. Again, adjust fire, all right? If you're not happy with the flavor, you can always add more to it. Tougher to take away flavor once it gets in there, and you're changing the whole recipe. You're having to add more liquids or having to add more other vegetables or anything just to kind of take away from the spice. So whenever you think something's not flavorful or salty or spicy enough, start at a lower level and then go up from there. Okay, it looks like everything's coming together. The sauce is the thickness that I want it to be. So I'm just going to take this and turn it off. Cast iron pans contain a lot of heat, and will take a long time to cool down. So just by turning that heat off, it's still got so much heat in there, it's going to continue to kind of steam out some of that moisture, make it a little bit thicker, but that is done. Now, going over to the gnocchis, they're boiling, they're coming up to the top. They are just about there. So I've got this cool little soup spoon that gets some of the liquid out of it. All right. That's really all there is to that, making gnocchis. Again, they don't have to be pretty. It's kind of one of those fun things that they're all different shapes and sizes. I like the inconsistency. I think the beauty behind some of this is really the inconsistencies of how they cook, and they take on their own types of shapes and forms. So that's pretty cool. All right, so all I do is I just take this gnocchi, throw it in here in the pan, give that a nice mix around. And by doing this, it gives the gnocchi some time to soak up some of that sauce before we plate it. Just get that really great flavor in the inside. We're almost there, folks. All we got to do is put this on a plate, make it look nice. We got ourselves a really cool way of just doing something different at home again. All right, we're all set. Just gonna go ahead and plate this down the middle. Gnocchi, spinach, cream, Parmesan, little tomato paste, some baby bell mushrooms. So awesome. Bit of that fresh parsley over the top there, huh? Beautiful, folks. Another easy dinner done by Chef Spidey. Again, thank you very much. This is going to be awesome. Trust me, try something like this at home. Shoot me your comments, shoot me your pictures. Make sure you like and subscribe. Thanks again to everybody out there. We'll be doing this pretty much every day. If you got any questions, please make sure you hit in the comments down there. Thanks again to everybody who's been supporting me. Over the night last night, we hit over 100 subscribers. I mean, I never thought it would even be this big. So thank you again. Thanks for motivating me to want to be better in the kitchen. Enjoy a nice meal on me. Make sure you wash your hands, you stay home, and you stay safe.